YouTube working. Come on. Welcome back, history seekers, to another episode of Fistory. Tonight, out of respect for the dead in the Sydney attack, I'm going to be not doing Jewish history. Instead, I thought we could examine a little sort of like thing that I discovered the other day, which is the Great Bullion Famine. I was not aware that this was a thing, but it turns out that there was in fact a massive shortage of gold and silver that happened in the 15th century after the Black Death. I'm sort of like working up to an episode about the Black Death because it's such a huge event in European history. Like it's just huge, right? Like so many people died, and then there was, it basically altered the sort of the economic makeup of Europe entirely. And then after that, you had all the wars, and Europe was in a right state. But the reason why I thought this was really, really interesting is that in a world of fiat money that we are in now, a lot of people are basically saying, well, why don't we go back to a gold and silver backed currency? And the Great Bullion Famine demonstrates the pitfalls with this idea. In fact, I've sort of like looked at this, and as far as I can tell, obviously I'm not a professional economist, but back in the day, it used to be sort of well understood that politics and the economy are sort of intertwined. There used to be a field called political economy, and it was only like later in like I think the late, was it like 20th century, or maybe late like the 1850s, like early 1900s, that these two disciplines separated out. So now you have politics and you have economics. But at the start, right, like when Adam Smith and Ricardo and all those people were doing it, was political economy, because it was basically sort of understood that the structure of the government affected the economy. So a lot of people are like, well, we should just go back to having like a gold-backed currency as a way to stop like sort of massive inflation of the monetary supply, which is what sort of like everyone is dealing with now. Now, I would basically say that the problem with this really is not quite so much the money supply itself. It is rampant usury. The amount of usury that we have going on in the West is fucking unprecedented. I saw this crazy video the other day. There's this new app out apparently called Covered, I believe, right? Where you can gamble on your credit card debt and bills, right? So say you've just made like an Amazon purchase, or you've got like something on your credit card bill. You can go and feed it into this slot machine app. And if you hit like the right jackpot, they will eat your credit card bill. But if you lose, your credit card bill like doubles, right? And this is, I mean, I know that's not technically sort of usury, but this sort of that gambling has like just infected like all of society is a big part of this. This is sort of like, the further we stray away from God, as it were, right? So you finance your burrito on Klarna for like 400% APR, and then when the bill comes due and you can't pay it, you go to like another app to like gamble to see whether you can get the debt erased. It's insane, right? Like the technical term for this, by the way, is financialization, right? And this is one of the problems with the West generally, is that we don't make actual stuff anymore because all of our brightest minds are engaged in trying to figure out how to sort of screw people out of more money and dream up ever more elaborate financial scams, right? Let me give you an example of what I mean, okay? So you might be aware that, people like to, get into, buy like gold and silver, okay? But in the modern market, a lot of the gold and silver that's going around is paper gold and paper silver. So you'll buy like, into like an ETF or an exchange traded fund, right? And all that really is that you're basically making a bet on the price movements of gold and silver. There's no real gold. And you can do this through a process called rehypothecation. So you might have, a bunch of like silver, right? And you then kick out an ETF linked to that amount of silver. And then you use those ETFs to like borrow money on that silver, and you kick out another instrument. And by the time this sort of process completes itself, you wind up with like 10 or 100 times more sort of circulating money than the actual, what's called the underlying, right? The actual underlying asset that backs all of this. This is one of the big reasons, by the way, why we get these huge financial crises, because they just keep building up like layer on top of layer on top of layer. So you've got the asset sort of, at the bottom, the actual thing that exists. And on top of this, you've got like all of these different layers of, loans and bonds and instruments and all this kind of thing. And it just becomes like very, very precarious, because the output of one will feed into the other. And then in this sort of incredibly complicated chain, and if it gets interrupted, the whole thing collapses. And a lot of people are quite rightly rebelling against this concept, because they want to own sort of actual stuff. Because a lot of the reason why people like gold and silver is the same reason why people have liked gold and silver throughout the ages. It's fungible, which means that one piece of gold of a certain fineness is basically identical to another piece of gold or silver at the same fineness. So it doesn't I give you like a silver coin, as long as it's like standardized. It's durable, it's waterproof, mostly fireproof, it doesn't decay over time. And it has sort of intrinsic value, unlike fiat currency. But the thing is, when you have actual precious metal as a currency, you can run into quite serious problems. So, for example, say we transitioned like the whole economy to gold tomorrow. Okay, right? Like instead of little electronic bits, you had gold coins and stuff like that, right? Or you had a currency that was strictly backed by gold, say, right? Like so the government could only print $1 for every dollar of gold that it had in its reserves. Okay, what this means is that if all the gold like leaves a country, and this is even more true, of course, when you've got actual coins of species circulating, you're basically up shit creek. People run when they run out of money, in the sense that they run out of actual coins to buy stuff with. And this was what happened in the Great Bullion Famine. Dun, dun, dun. So yeah, that's my setup. Let's see who we got in the chat. On YouTube, we got non-purified drinking water, Evil Author, good to see you. Phoenician, good to see you. Dongus Khan, not Dongus Kark, good to see you, mate. Top Rob, Victorian Time Traveler, Sunny Jim, Edie Wolf, and Simon JJ. Oh, it's lovely to see you all, guys. And on Rumble, Teabagging Therapist, Mikey Bikey. Anybody else? No, just the hardcores in Rumble. And on Odyssey, we got MK, Evola 19, Nuriti. Good to see you, Nuriti. It's nice to have some new like faces around. And you can, if you want to like donate money to the channel, I'm not monetized on YouTube yet, but you can send via either Ko-Fi or Entropy. Send in your questions. So yes, we're taking sort of a break strictly from the history to sort of do some economics, basically. So the Great Bullion Famine. I can't believe I've never heard of this before. The Great Bullion Famine was a shortage of precious metals that struck Europe in the 15th century, with the worst years of the famine being 1457 to 1464. During the Middle Ages, gold and silver coins saw widespread use as currency in Europe and facilitated trade with the Middle East and Asia. The shortage of these metals therefore became a problem for European economies. The main cause for the bullion famine was an outflow of silver to the east, unequaled by European mining output, although 15th century contemporaries believe the bullion famine to be caused by hoarding. But of course, we don't believe anything that people say from that time, right? Like, much smarter people have come along since then and said, no, it's not about hoarding. It was about very, very complicated economics that those, stupid people back in the 15th century could possibly understand. The exploration and later discovery of the New World is believed to have been fueled by the Bullion famine. Now, this is really interesting. So the next time, right, like some, SJW, I'm back to calling them SJWs, I guess, comes up and is like, the only reason why like the Spanish sailed to the Americas is because they were hungry for gold, and this is like white supremacy. I guess the Spanish white. Yeah, close enough. Light brown supremacy. Yes, but also no, right? There was a big sort of shortage of actual gold and silver to make coin or specie. And this is almost certainly what drove the sort of Spanish, like, quote unquote, lust for gold, right? Like you've seen all the propaganda things where the Spanish are like, we're going to find the lost city of El Dorado and we're all going to get like, filthy rich. I'm sure there was like a bit of that. But it had never been pointed out to me before that there was actually like sort of a gold and silver famine going on in Europe. And of course, the Jewish expulsion in 1470 probably didn't help that either, right? The the Jewish population of Spain no doubt could see the way that the wind was blowing, and so we probably started like hoarding what money they had, moving it out of like Spain. It's nobody really knows, but it's interesting to consider. The discovery of the Americas with its gold, silver and gold, along with innovations in mining techniques and the Portuguese gaining access to African gold, ended the bullion famine. It had been linked to the wider crisis of the late Middle Ages. Wait, I think we got entropy. Let me just figure this out. We did. Oh my God. $25 from MK. Oh, thank you, MK. I appreciate that. Insert witty comment here. Okay. Bullion famine. More like gold-plated starvation. Ha! Thank you, MK. I hope you're doing well, mate. I hope you're doing well. Thank you very much. Let's see what else we got. Okay, right, back to the thing. The main cause for the bullion famine was an outflow of silver to the east, unequaled by European mining output. The historian John Day, again, modern sort of like guy, supports this theory, stating that the loss of gold and silver was due to large-scale trading with the Levant, which provided Europe spices, silks, rare dyestuffs, pearls, and precious gems. The primary market for these goods were found in Egypt, Syria, and Cyprus. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. If the primary market is in Egypt, Syria, and Cyprus, then why is all the silver? I guess. Oh, I guess that's where they bought them from, right? So the silver and the gold flowed to the east. The idea apparently is that due to the Black Death, which sort of killed off so many people, that it wound up like raising wages, and weirdly enough, sort of stimulating the economy. Apparently, there was like a big desire in Europe for luxury goods, and a lot of these luxury goods came from the Levant, which back then sort of basically meant sort of the Middle East, sort of generally, Egypt, Syria, Cyprus, all these kinds of like places, and so precious metals in the form of coins flowed to the east, and luxury goods flowed back to the west, but they wound up like running out. 15th century contemporaries believed the bullion famine to be caused by hoarding, as I was saying. Sevket Pamuk, professor of economics and economic history, states the bullion famine was exacerbated by the increase in the hoarding of coin. However, another historian states the silver shortage exacerbated economic problems already caused by war, famine, and plague, of which there was a lot going around. During the first half of the 14th century, European mining more than compensated the bullion loss from trade with the Middle East. Prior to the Black Death, the loss of silver in England was caused by accident and export. Yet by 1348, the Black Death had slowed silver mining. The mint at Bordeaux suffered a drop in production by 50% by the 1380s. French mints were suffering an accelerated decline in. By contrast, from 1346 to 1384, Flemish mints, those are those like little peppermint things you suck that produce a lot of phlegm. Flemish mints continued to produce silver groats, not goats. Yet by 1392, the mint at Ghent had stopped coining and the Bruges mint fell idle in 1402. In the 1390s, the silver mints at Kutna Hora declined, and the following Hussite Wars and the Sardinian-Aragonese War put further strain on the European precious metal supply. So this just keeps going on and on and on. Basically, the mining started going down. The mints, started running out of coin. And presumably what then happened, basically, is that governments got the supplies of coins that they had, toned down the metal supply, and reminted them. Now, this is a thing called dilution. I believe it's called dilution, where you basically start, you put in base metals into coins and you re-mint them. And this is always like a cause of, or a symptom of governments in financial trouble. They start just, minting coins, just inflating the currency, right? So having gold and silver coins doesn't necessarily stop the monetary supply from being debased. Quite the opposite. And what tends to happen in such a situation, bugger off Wikipedia, I'm not giving you money, is this thing called Gresham's Law, right? So Gresham's Law is the monetary principle saying that bad money drives out good money. So if there are two coins of the sort of same face value, right? So you've got say two, I don't know, $10 coins, right? And one of them is made from pure silver and one of them is made from junk. You're going to spend the junk ones first, right? Just by definition, because you want to hang on to the more valuable coins. You see this a lot of the time with currencies like Bitcoin and stuff like that, where people will just sort of hang on to and hoard them and sort of spend fiat money first, because it is depreciating in value, whereas something like Bitcoin is holding its value. I mean, at least it was for a while, I guess, right? So yes, what winds up happening is that the valuable money basically disappears from circulation because people start hoarding them and they only really spend the crappy money. Now, this is a sort of a quite a clever principle, that once you start debasing the currency, unless you can debase it all at the same time. This is one of the reasons why, by the way, why modern governments love just printing paper money, because it gets around all of that, right? Because any pound note, for example, or, 10-pound note or whatever, is worth exactly the same as any other 10-pound note, because they're intrinsically worthless. It's just a piece of plastic. They don't contain any actual intrinsic value at all. So they don't really suffer from Gresham's Law. You know what I mean? The government, they've been smart about this. They're we're just gonna tax you all at source. What are you gonna do about it? Well, not a lot, right? The law was named in 1857 by economist Henry Dunning MacLeod after Sir Thomas Gresham, an English financier during the Tudor dynasty. Gresham had urged Queen Elizabeth to restore confidence in the then debased English currency. The concept was thoroughly defined in Renaissance Europe by Nicholas Copernicus and known centuries earlier in classical antiquity, the Near East, and China. So, good money and bad money. Under Gresham's Law, good money is money that shows little difference between its nominal value, the face value of the coin, and its melt value, the intrinsic value of the metal item based solely on the market value of the metal from which it is made. So, yeah, basically, and again, the point is that paper money is worth nothing. It has no intrinsic value, so it doesn't suffer from these problems, which allows them to sort of basically debase the currency, like sort of ad infinitum. The price spread between the face value and commodity value when it is minted is called seigniorage. Seigniorage is also the power to print money, or the profit that a government makes from issuing currency. Or to put this another way, say you have a pound coin, right? And originally it contained like £1 worth of silver, and that's how its value was set. Okay. Then the government comes in and they're like, hey, I've got this like great idea. Why don't we take all the coins in the treasury, melt them down, and we'll make them just 80% silver. Okay. But they'll still be worth £1 each, particularly if we force people under pain of death to pay their taxes with it. This is a concept known as, oh God, how am I forgetting this? Anyway, there's a financial concept, which is basically if you force people to pay taxes in a certain currency, you can ensure that it keeps circulating even if people don't want to use it. What the hell is that called? Oh, chat, does anyone know what that concept is called? I can't remember. So in this case, the government would be making 20% on every coin, right? Because they only put in 80% silver, but they can still spend these new coins as if they are worth £1. So they make money. This is called seigniorage. Although, of course, now, because money is either paper or just digital, the seigniorage is basically 100% for the government, right? Because they don't actually have to spend anything in making the actual currency. I mean, I suppose there's probably like a small fee to make a plastic £20 note, but it's it's chicken feed. And for digital money, it's literally zero. It costs them nothing to pump some like numbers out in the thing. You know what I'm saying, right? Bad money is money that has a commodity value considerably lower than its face value and is in circulation along with good money, where both forms are required to be accepted at equal value. Legal tender. Fuck, that's the word I'm looking for. Legal tender is when you can pay your taxes in a certain currency, or you have to pay your taxes in a certain currency. Is the way it usually works. And this is one of the ways that governments make sure that their debased currency of choice keeps getting circulated, because they'll be like, well, that's a very nice property you got there. It'd be a shame if anything happened to it if you didn't pay your taxes. And and the farmer will be like, well, I mean, what if I what if I wanted to pay my taxes in shit, I don't know, grain or Beanie Babies, or bad dragon dildos or something like that, right? And the government would be like, no, you got to pay in our special monies, right? And which allows them to just keep printing money. You see examples of when this goes wrong, like all through history. There's a really, really good example in the in Ancien Regime France before the revolution, where they had a paper currency known as the assignat. And they just like write this thing like, like I don't know whether they were actually like printed or whether they just cut them out and stamped them with the signature of the king, but they were like just throwing these things out the door because the Ancien Regime had like massive debts because the king was like doing all this crazy stuff. And sort of by the end, I think before the revolution, like the assignat was actually trading at 40% face value or something like that. And so then what happened in that case is that although normal people wouldn't accept it because it had been devalued like so much, the government had to accept it for the payment of taxes at the face value. So what would happen is, like, around tax season, people would go around and they would buy up assignats. They'd be like, here's a hog, give me, I don't know, 200 assignats. Okay. And they would be able to pay, they basically get a discount on their taxes because the government had to accept the assignment at the face value for the payment of taxes. But what had happened was that a secondary black market had developed in the wider economy where people weren't actually paying the face value, if you get what I'm saying, right? And this is again another sort of case of bad money driving out the good money. In Gresham's day, bad money included any coin that had been debased. Debasement was often done by the issuing body, where less than the officially specified amount of precious metal was contained in an issue of coinage, usually by alloying it with a base metal as opposed to a based metal. The public could also debase coins, usually by clipping or scraping off small portions of the precious metal, also known as stemming. Reeded edges on coins were intended to make the clipping evident. Of course, there was a certain group that were sort of very well known for doing this. Other examples of bad money include counterfeit coins made from base metal. Today, virtually all circulating coins are made from base metals, often the cheapest available, because currency is not fiat currency does not get its money get its value from the intrinsic value of the currency itself. It gets its value by government fiat. Fiat, of course, is Latin for let it be. The government basically just declares it to be money, and a big way they do this is by declaring that you have to use that money to pay your goddamn taxes, basically, right? Yes, so today all circulating coins are made from base metals, often the cheapest available. Durable base metal. Collectively, these monies are known as fiat money. Told you. While virtually all contemporary coinage is composed solely of base metals, there have been periods during the 21st century in which the market value of some base metals like copper has been high enough that at least one common coin, the US nickel, still maintained good money status. In the case of clipped, scraped, or counterfeit coins, the commodity value was reduced by fraud. The face value remains at the previous higher level. On the other hand, with a coinage debased by a government issuer, the commodity value of the coinage was often reduced quite openly, while the face value of the debased coins was held at a higher level by legal tender laws, as I was just saying. The old saying, a bad penny always turns up, is a colloquial recognition of Gresham's law. So, this is like, this is why money today works the way that it does. And what I'm trying to like get at is that everyone dislikes, well, okay, I guess the people who are like insanely profiting it from it don't mind it, but a lot of the the poors, the people who actually have to deal with the consequences of fiat money and particularly constant price inflation, dislike this system of fiat money. It does have its advantages. I mean, particularly for the government, obviously, right? They can basically tax you at source. And this is a very, 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 very important idea. Okay. Back in the day, when the government wanted to like tax you stuff, it was a whole to do. Okay. Right. Like they'd have to like send out tax collectors. People would like hide their stuff. You'd often have to like collect taxes based on like, how big their crops were. People would lie about like, how much crops they got or like hide their sheep or this kind of like stuff. And that's why you basically had this class of people known as tax farmers, right? Where the government would essentially give them a license to farm a certain area of the land for tax. And anything over what the government expected, the tax farmer got to keep. Now, as you can imagine, this wound up being a highly, highly exploitative and very, very hated feature of many regimes. And a certain minority group was, how should I say, vastly overrepresented in the use of tax farming, which I'll probably cover more when I do the history of England. Now, so wait, where was I going with this? Yeah, legal tender, Gresham's law. Now, the thing about gold-backed currency is that it depends sort of very, very much on how much gold is in supply. But I want to point out, okay, you might have heard on the grapevine that after the Spanish discovered the New World, okay, they shipped in so much gold and silver that it caused an inflationary spike. Okay. Oh wait, was I not sharing the right tab? Oh God, I wasn't sharing the right tab. I'm a bit out of it. Oh, somebody bought a beer 30 minutes ago. Really enjoying the Fistory episodes at work. Makes the work less dreary. Oh, thank you very, very much. Wait, who is that? Let me refresh the page. Somebody, just somebody. Thank you very much, somebody. I really appreciate that, mate. Right, hang on. Where am I going here? Yeah, so I didn't swap the page over. I was like highlighting stuff and mate. God, dude. Honestly. Right. So you might have heard this, this sort of popular thing. Oh, the Spanish in their lust for gold and big booty Latinas imported so much gold and silver that it caused an inflationary crisis in Spain. Well, yes, but actually, this level of inflation was about 1.2% per year, right? So this is a it compared to today's like fiat environment, right? Where even the ideal targeted rate for most Western governments is like an inflation rate of 2% or 3%. This is fucking nothing, right? So this should give you a sort of an indication of how bad things get when money gets completely divorced from any actual underlying asset. So you're sort of stuck in a bind here. What economists call this is monetary elasticity. This is one of the ways they sold the Federal Reserve, by the way, to the American people. They're like, we're gonna have a crisis, because there's like not enough gold, and no, we need monetary elasticity, so like the money supply can like keep up. And of course, it turned out to be a massive scam, and look at where we fucking are now. So inflation is really, really bad. But then again, I imagine in Christian Spain, well, I mean, definitely after the expulsion, usury was basically outlawed. If I'm remembering rightly, I was reading up on it today. So I would say that it is the use of fiat money combined with usury that is sort of the real killer of financial systems that we're seeing now, right? Remember when you loan someone money, right? When a loan is made, and someone has to pay extra interest back on it, that money has to come from somewhere. That money does not actually exist, right? Like, in sort of like a closed loop kind of like system. If there's like, say there's only 100,000 in actual money, okay, and you lend half of that to someone at 5%. Well, where are they going to get the extra money to pay you back? Okay, now supposedly that's supposed to come from economic activity and no. But in terms of like the actual extra dollar bills, particularly in like a fiat currency situation, where does it come from? This is why they're always printing like extra money. Now, one of the other things about fiat money, but money in general, right? This isn't just fiat money. This applies really to sort of any money. Is that the person who spends it first gets an advantage? This is known as the Cantillon effect. After Richard Cantillon, I don't. Do we have a picture here of Mr. Cantillon? Monsieur Cantillon? We don't, because this is Wikipedia. Cantillon is a fascinating dude, but he is most noted for his the Cantillon effect, right? Which states that money is not neutral. but the person who gets it first gets a considerable advantage. Now, this is a really important thing to understand. Say the government prints $1 billion out of thin air, okay? Well, they get to spend it at the current price of things, okay? The inflation does not spread out equally all at once. And the way this sort of like works out in practice is that as it goes down the chain, the people who get the first dibs get effectively a sort of a 20% discount. And then the second tier get like a 10% discount. And then like the third person it's passed to get like a zero. And then the fourth, fifth, and sixth people it passes to get increasingly more like expensive as inflation begins to bite. This again, this is true of fiat money, but it's also true of, say, a government. They're like, oh, we've just got like a bunch of like gold. We're going to like print coins or something like that, particularly if it's debased and they've like, racked the value up. They get the first mover advantage. Essentially, they get to buy things at the old price, and then everyone else gets screwed by the inflation further down, if that makes sense. Yes, so he posited that money originates from specific sources such as mines or state issuance and flows sequentially through society, altering relative prices and incomes in a manner that redistributes wealth from the later recipients to the early ones. Okay, so the money trickles down, but the people who got it first get an outsized advantage, and the poor people get screwed, basically. This process challenges simplistic quantity theories of money, which assume proportional or simultaneous price adjustments by emphasizing the causal role of money's path in driving sectoral imbalances, which is just a complex way of basically saying that inflation doesn't hit an entire system all at once. People like spend it, they like buy stuff. This, changes the supply demand curve, and then they pass it on, and blah, blah, blah. Now, all of this has led people to sort of think of different ways of doing money. So you've got like the precious metal version, you've got like the fiat version, but a number of people were like messing around with this idea of a labor-backed currency. So I thought that Marx was banging on about this with his labor theory of value, but it turns out apparently not. Marx's labor theory of value was oh my god, it's been so long since I've read Marx. I just remember the refutation of it. It's just silly because you can't really sort of value labor, right? Like in time, right? Like the dude he might spend an hour. That's what it was, right? It was like if I spend, I don't know, 20 hours painting my cat purple, it's not going to be anywhere near as valuable as someone who spent 20 hours, I don't know, building a bridge or something like that, right? And so the problem with the labor theory of value is that you can't just sort of break labor down to sort of discrete blocks and be like 1 hour's labor is equal to another hour's labor. Although there have been sort of people who have tried. I mean, this is what the fuck is Marx talking about here? Yes, labor certificates, a transitional lower stage of communism, often called socialism, where workers would receive labor certificates proportional to the labor time they contributed after societal deductions for common needs. That's just called taxation, by the way. Right? After societal deductions for common needs. I love how Marx wouldn't just call it fucking taxation. That's just taxation, right? Wait, we got another entropy. Mikey Bikey for $5. Don't paint your cat purple. That's silly. Yes. Well, of course it's silly. But I needed like a silly example, right? So let me see. So there were a couple of ideas of like labor money and stuff like that. I thought I'd just talk about these for like a little bit towards the end. One of the okay, so this is quite interesting. Thank you, Grok, for this. Apparently, this idea of a labor-backed currency has been sort of like kicking around, right? And I first came across this um, from the Nazi economist Hjalmar Schacht, who used MIFO bills as a form of labor-backed vouchers to finance rearmament secretly. These were essentially promissory notes tied to industrial labor output circulating in a closed system. They were implemented successfully for their purpose, but were not a socialist or equitable system, serving instead to evade international scrutiny. So they weren't like proper sort of like labor vouchers, I guess, right? And the idea of a labor voucher basically would be like, you work for an hour, you get like given, a labor voucher that says, 1 hour's, you have done 1 hour of labor and you can go and spend it on something else. And the way they determine the value of stuff is how many hours it took to make. Okay, so maybe the razor you want to buy took like 5 minutes to make of like human nature. I don't know how you would quantify this, by the way. This seems like ridiculously complicated, right? Like, say you've got like a machine that's stamping out razor blades, shavers, right? Um, would you like, how would you value the labor? Would you just value the labor of the dude who was like at the final stamping thing? If it was like an assembly line, would you like look at all the people on the assembly line? I don't know. I don't know how you'd work this out. However, a few like weirdos tried to like make this work. Entropy. No, we did that one, right? Hosea Warren's Cincinnati Time Store. Warren, an American anarchist and inventor, opened a store in Cincinnati where goods were priced based on the labor time required to produce them, plus a small markup for the storekeeper's effort. Customers paid with labor notes representing promised future labor or equivalent value. This was a practical implementation that operated for about 3 years before Warren closed it down to pursue other experiments in equitable communities. It influenced later mutualist ideas, but remained limited in scale. And I've got the page here. So this is like an anarchism thing. So again, this is the labor theory of value, right? Okay. So hang on, let's do the labor theory of value just for like a little bit. What's going on here? Come on. So the labor theory of value by Karl Marx is economic theory that argues that the economic value of a good or service is determined by the total amount of socially necessary labor required to produce it. What the hell is socially necessary labor? Socially necessary labor time in Marx's critique of political economy is what regulates the exchange value of commodities in trade. In short, socially necessary labor time refers to the average quantity of labor time that must be performed under currently prevailing conditions to produce a commodity. Oh, Lord and Saints preserve us. That sounds highly gay and Marxist. Sorry, miss me with that gay bullshit. Right. So this experimental store, this time store, operated very, very briefly. So, for about 3 years. So, clearly long-term viable. It closed in 1830 with Warren being satisfied that he had demonstrated running and managing a business without, quote, the erection of any power over the individual. Okay. His theory, replacing money with time, was turned into an actual practical demonstration project. This was the first such activity preceding similar labor notes in Europe by more than 20 years and still has implications for other concepts of currencies, such as cryptocurrencies. I mean, I guess, but crypto like Bitcoin is really based on a unit of energy rather than time. I don't know. I mean, I guess there's a certain amount of like labor involved in that. A computer has to compute stuff, but maybe like after the crash, right? Like people will be like trying to like mine Bitcoin with like pen and paper. Did I solve the block? No. Ah, god damn it. Yeah, I mean, you just, you want to do a Bitcoin transaction, you like tie it to like a, a pigeon and something, and you know, send it off to the exchange or something. I'm sure that'd work fine, right? So though apparently it did sort of like take off. Warren embraced the labor theory of value, which says that the value of a commodity is the amount of labor that goes into it. From this, he concluded it was therefore unethical to charge more labor for a product than the labor required to produce it. I don't know how you would determine that. Warren summed up this policy in the phrase, cost is the limit of price, with cost referring to the amount of labor one exerted in producing a good. How do you determine this? Believing that labor is the fundamental cost of things, he held that equal amounts of labor should naturally receive equal material compensation. I can already see like massive flaws with this, but anyway, he set out to examine if his theories could be put in practice by establishing his labor for labor store. If his experiment proved to be successful, his plan was to establish various colonies whose participants all agreed to use the cost limit of price in all economic transactions, hoping that all of society would eventually adopt the tenet in all economic affairs. And I think this is, I don't know, this is a labor note, right? So 3 hours due to, now you see it's not transferable, so you can't give this to another person to spend on your behalf because it's your labor, I guess. 3 hours of labor or 12 pounds of corn. So I mean, so you see how even this labor note, right, contains a commodity amount in it, right? Like 12 pounds of corn. Okay, so corn is a fungible good. Okay, like that is like easily divisible. This is the problem. Everyone always comes back to commodity money because a pound of corn is a pound of corn at the end of the day. I mean, okay, some corn may be better than other corn, and no, but you get my point, right? Whereas the labor of a very industrious person for an hour is not likely to be the same as the labor of a slack ass for an hour. So you always have these problems. Very, very interesting to see that it still has a commodity value attached to it, even though it's supposed to be a labor note. In the store, customers could purchase goods with labor notes, which represented an agreement to perform labor. The items in the store were initially marked up to 7% to account for the labor required to bring them to market, with the price increasing the longer the time that a customer spent with the shopkeeper, as measured by a timer dial. Holy shit, right? So because the shopkeeper is engaging in labor, right, serving you, there's like a timer on the counter, and the longer you faff around, the more the price of the thing goes up. So yeah, if you get really stoned and you like walk in, right, it's like a labor McDonald's or something, right? And they're like, welcome, what do you have? And you just stand there and be like, like, the price of like everything is like ticking up as you like stare at the menu. Fucking weird, man. Corn was used as a standard. See, with 12 pounds of corn being exchangeable for 1 hour of labor, they couldn't get around it, right? It has to be grounded in something fungible and tangible. Labor in itself is too weird and varied a concept to make it work. You know what I mean, right? The result of the system is that no one was able to profit from the labor of another. Every individual ostensibly received the full produce of his labor. Sounds a bit commie to me. Adjustments were made for the difficulty and disagreeableness of the work performed. Okay, so this is the thing. Whoever did the central ledger, right, that says, 1 hour of being a receptionist is worth, 15 minutes of cleaning a toilet or something like that. They have incredible power under that system, right? Comparable to a bank under a fiat system, right? Because they could suddenly be like, well, actually, today we've decided that, due to the new spanker brush, actually cleaning a toilet is now only worth 20 minutes of like a reception job or something. You know what I'm saying, right? Like there's always any sort of vaguiarities in a currency system inevitably require some kind of centralizing authority, and this is why I can't fuck with anarchists, because eventually you always wind up with a government, right? Like I have the voluntarists, they come at me and they're like, you're just a slave, bro. It's not that, right? Like governments are like assholes, right? They're unpleasant, but you need them, because if you don't have one, like it doesn't work, right? Like it's just one of those things you can't get by without them. And what tends to basically happen, even in like an anarchist collective or fucking whatever, is that whoever provides security just de facto is the government, essentially, right? Like, whoever winds up providing security, whoever like winds up sort of being the competent people who like people look up to for a decision, boom, that's your government, right? Government is a fundamental part of the way that humans work. I mean, right? Like you can define government very, very broadly, right? Like in Africa, it'd just be like, media warlord, give me women or I chop your hands off. Boom, you're the government, right? Like you can't get around it. And this is one of the reasons why anarchist societies are just inherently unstable and they just always collapse. You never see any of these things last for very long. Even the fucking Paris Commune, which the commies love to fucking talk about, only lasted like 3 years or something like that, right? So where are we going on this? Yes, so Warren also set up boards on the wall where individuals could post what kind of services they were seeking or had to sell, so that others could respond and trade amongst each other using labor notes. I mean, see, this is why you need like a fungible monetary system, right? Like corn, or during the bullion famine, a lot of people using pepper, apparently, because pepper's like quite, it's standardized. You can easily split it. Like all these things about currency like wind up. So after an initial rough period, the store proved to be very successful. Warren's goods were much cheaper than competitors, though he maintained that he was not trying to put other stores out of business. Another store in the neighborhood converted to Warren's methods. The fact that prices for goods rose, the more time a customer spent with Warren resulted in very efficient transactions. I mean, this is probably like the reason like why, because everyone would just be like in and out, because if the longer you took to make the purchase, the price keeps going up. Oh my god, I bet you're gonna like try this with like digital money. When the new central bank digital currency comes out, all the shit they're going to like try, right? They will have like sort of, the digital pound or whatever. They'll be able to do shit, right? Like pay you money that depreciates in value rapidly. Okay, so you get like you get paid £100, and a week from now it's worth £90, and 2 weeks from now it's worth £80. They can just like program it straight into the coin, and the government will be like, well, the economy's looking a bit sluggish. We need people to like spend, right? So they'll, and this, mate, I foresee all kinds of unforeseen problems, but holy shit, they're gagging for this. Like I'm telling you, right? They're like, we're going to have complete control over the economy. You're just going to make a huge fucking black market. You are just going to make a huge black market, because like, let's examine this. Okay. Chat, if you want to give me your thoughts on this, I would appreciate this. All right. If you got paid in right, like the pound, okay, right, in depreciating, digital pound, okay, and if you didn't spend all of it within a week, right, it would suddenly drop 10% in value, right? What would you do with it? Well, I know what I'd do with it. I'd buy, I don't know, cigarettes or perfume, or like just something that would hold its value, right? That was like easily transportable, that you could then like turn around for money on the black market, right? Rather than just buy like, crap or something like that. They probably want you to go to, you know, McDonald's and just blow it all, or, Deliveroo, or, like support, give it to like the migrant charity or something like that. No, people will turn around and they'll start buying shit, pepper or tobacco or just anything that will hold its value, and they'll start saving that way. You can't get around like people's individual desire to say. um so Southside 778 gold, Edie Wolf, Schnapps. Okay, so Schnapps, Edie Wolf knows where it's fucking at, right? Alcoholic spirits are excellent. Basically jail rules, right? Is what happens, right? If you look at the way like jails are actually like really fascinating from an economic point of view, just like watching people sort of like maximize their own self-interest. By a Newfoundler. Let's see. Mikey Bikey, tin food, rope, batteries, etc. Exactly. The prepper's delight. Mikey Bikey knows what he's fucking talking about. So yeah. So you're not going to get around this. Okay. So because the items got more expensive the longer you were in the store. Warren said that he was doing more business in an hour than normal businesses do in one day, leading him to close the shop part of the day to rest. Although the store was successful, the problem of equal labor times for different difficulties of work was a concern for Warren. I fucking bet it was. How do you quantify that? He was never able to reconcile the objectivity of his labor for labor prescription, treating all labor as essentially fungible goods, because labor is not fungible. And I'll tell you why, right? Like fungible means that you can exchange two things. Okay, so if you have, let's say, right, you're looking for like a computer guy, right? And you've got like one dude who's like a Gen Xer with a ponytail and glasses, right, white guy, and you've got like Sanjeet who just came off the boat. Okay, their labor is not fungible, right? Like it isn't, right? Gold and silver, and fiat currency are fungible in the sense that one 20-pound note is basically exactly the same as any other 20-pound note, unless you're like a collector, right? With the subjectivity employed in determining how much time used for one type of labor entailed the same amount of work exerted during a different amount of time performing another amount of labor. He settled to simply credit it with being a matter of individual judgment. Okay. Warren closed the store in 1832 in order to depart to set up colonies based on the labor cost principle. The most successful of these being Utopia. What the fuck? Oh, it's one of those. I really should do like a thing on this. Like around like the 1800s. There was a whole bunch of these like weird sort of utopian visions that like propped up. You got like Proudhon. You got that guy whose name I can never freaking remember. All these weird like sort of like quasi socialist like utopian sort of like communities like started like springing up with all these like weird ideas. So they were like all messing around with stuff. So let me see, what else have we got? I think that's basically it. We're basically about an hour. I was going to go into like the MIFO notes and stuff, but that's sort of like a lot less interesting. Actually, they weren't real labor-backed currencies. They were just basically sort of a way for the Nazis to rearm without the Allies noticing. So I guess that's basically it. I hope you enjoyed this, bros. Thank you very much to super chatters. Wait, why am I? Where's the? Yes, MK for 25, Mikey Bikey, and for whoever it was who gave us the Ko-fi, somebody. Thank you very very much. We'll be back. Well, I will be back on next Monday. Probably going to do the Jewish history of England, which is which is really fascinating. Just, you know, I got the Jewish Encyclopedia entry on that. It's like amazing. But I wanted to give that a rest for a week, given sort of like how like everything's like going at the moment and stuff like that. Let's say goodbye to all the peoples in the chat on YouTube. Origin Party, Seti Sapiente, Rhetorically Defective. Oh, good to see ya, Artie. Is our stream labor fungible? I don't know, bro. You'd need like a fungible thing to measure it with, mate. Top Rob 20, Victorian Time Traveler, Simon JJ. Good to see you, Simon. Edie Wolf, Searsite, Total Blackout Painting, TPB. Good to see ya. And of course, come along on Friday night for Artie and Fist. We might start streaming like more than once a week, actually, now that I'm back in London and locked in. Lewis Hutchison, Quizats Chatterack, Cameron, Jakota Komaroko, man, all these like new people. Welcome, Dongus Cock 69, Master Shake. Good to see you guys. Bobby B. Anybody else? I think that's everybody. And on Rumble, we had Shebagging Therapist, Mikey Bikey. I think that's it. Yeah, it's quiet on Rumble. Actually, we've got more people on Odyssey. Odyssey MK, Evola 19, Nariti. Is Israel fungible? Bruh. Pale Rider. Good to see you, mate. Anybody else? I think that's everybody. Thank you so much for coming, bros. I will be back next week for another Fistory. I hope you enjoy these. I really, mate, I really prefer doing these to like covering the news. I can't hack it, mate. I'm telling you, I can't take the news at the moment. It's just like, did you know everything's terrible? Did you know that like everything's going to shit? Let's examine in autistic detail how everything's going to shit. I can't take it. I can't take it anymore. I can't take it. So you know, thanks to everyone who enjoyed Happening TV, but I don't think I'm going to be doing it again like anytime soon. I can't. We'll have some like Christmas and New Year's Eve streams though coming up, so I hope you can join us for those. Take care, everyone. Good night.